Hello, and thank you for clicking on the video. My name is Matt. Welcome to Felstar DM. Today I want to talk about a question that kind of comes up with a lot of new DMs, and that's how do I keep my players interested and going through the story? And the shortest answer to that is you can't. The more convoluted answer to that is just make sure that you're writing it in a way that allows your story to keep going. Your players are never going to do what you expect, and trying to write for every possible or conceivable outcome for what a group of people that don't know your story start to finish are going to do is an overwhelming, impossible situation. So we need to kind of come up with ways to make sure that we are getting from point A to B to C to D all the way through to whatever the last letter in your plan for the story is. Everything that happens between each of those major points is not important. You don't really need to account for the 23 possibilities between each of those ones. And I say 23, it could be an infinite number depending on how creative or off the walls your players are. And it also gives opportunities to weave side quests in, stuff like that. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Realistically, you have a story in mind. We can talk about the things that need to get done. Let's say, just for the sake of argument, that the start of the story and the end of the story require 5 events to happen, right? Your players need to come together and accomplish 5 things with different NPCs. They don't necessarily all need to happen in a specific city, right? I'm just going to pick US cities for this example because realistically, it's just as nonsensical as whatever magical world you're going to come up with. So if we're just going to be traveling up and down the East Coast, we need to start in Boston, hit New York, maybe go to Baltimore, then work our way all the way down south to Atlanta and Tampa, right? The story ends in Tampa. But we need to start in Boston. We need to make sure that we're getting our players from Boston down the East Coast to Tampa. Well, there's a lot of different ways for them to go, right? In Boston, they could procure ships and sail all the way down. Well, maybe there are some things that make it so that there's bad weather or sea monsters or pirates that they need to redirect back into New York. You can roll on table for that, you can plan it. All of a sudden, pirates and sea monsters might become an interesting side quest for them to pursue. It could become an, additional part of your BBEG that is going to be, controlling the seaways, and now they need to work in New York and all these other coastal cities where they're going to be able to build up the defenses, they're going to be able to procure their own fleet, they're going to work on messing up the trade routes so that the pirates and all that don't have the supplies that they need. And then as they travel south, all of a sudden the local mayors or whatever are a problem because they work for the BBEG. Well, how are you going to manage that? Are you going to rise up with the populace to overthrow the mayor? Are you going to, make it a siege situation? All these different things, can happen in between all of these cities that they need to go to. Or they may want to go west and gather up supplies and fight monsters and stuff, but, the BBEG has also had this kind of plan where they've, got outposts and forward operating bases out west where, they can run into something that maybe was something you had planned for Baltimore, but maybe we're going to make it happen out in Ohio or something, because the story beat needs to happen, but the important part is not super, relevant, right? You were planning on an East Coast adventure, but maybe we work our way west. And maybe your plan was for it to end in Tampa, but realistically the players want to work on going west, so now the story really ends in LA. You can't plan for everything that is going to happen. It's just not a possible thing. What you need to do is basically set up 1, maybe 2 sessions worth of things that have a couple of options. Remember, as a DM, you are in control of what the players know and what the players are able to do. So if you're going to present them options, prepare for those options and understand that they're going to come up with their own ideas as well. When it comes down to that point, maybe it's towards the end of the session and you throw a combat there because, random encounters happen sometimes as they begin their plan, right? They're going to work west from, New York or Baltimore or whatever. And as they just begin their adventure, You know, you throw a combat there to pad the time of the session out. They maybe get a little bit of loot. They get an idea for, you know, kind of the things that they're going to run into out there. And then you have time before the next session to figure out what's going to happen between Baltimore and Ohio, and then, you know, move all the things that were going to happen in Atlanta to Ohio. You see what I'm saying? The goal is not for you to write a book and have your players follow it, because that's never going to happen. If your goal is to keep them on a pure railroad running in this story that you have in your head, this isn't a D&D game at that point. This is a book. Go write the book. You need to be able to give freedom and options to your players to go ahead and make decisions, and you adapt to it. This is a give and take relationship where both of you are going to be contributing something to the story, and realistically it is a shared storytelling experience. That's realistically how most people describe D&D. That's the most generous version. But your job is to not railroad them from you know, A to E. Your job is to make the story flow from A to E with all the other things that come up, right? Like I said, there's side quests and adventures and sidekicks and NPCs and all these different things that, you know, need help. There's a million resources of, you know, roll me an NPC, roll me a monster, roll me a loot table, roll me a tavern. There's tons and tons of third-party resources out there. The new 2024 DMG is hopefully going to bring some more like official information to us, but for now, people have been doing this for decades. There's information out there for different ideas for side quests, different ideas for how to, you know, make travel interesting, for NPCs, and, you know, all these different things, right? You know, and at the same time, your players might be coming to you saying, hey, we really want a sidekick. Okay, so your goal at that point is to, one, consider how reasonable it is, how much effort you want to put into it, and then that can be something that they can pursue. Realistically, the goal here is for everyone at the table to work together. It isn't just, you know, getting through all the story beats. You can get to all the story beats without writing every small detail in between. There's also the benefit that you have as the DM of the DM screen, right? You know roughly what you want your difficulty level to be for things. You can hide things, you can fudge rolls if you want to. I personally don't, but I think it's more interesting when the dice tell the story instead of, you know, me directing things. You have as much control over it as you want. That's kind of the answer, is you do your prep little bits at a time. You know, like I said, you run your outline. It's like writing an essay for school when we were growing up, right? You write your outline, and then you fill in the next layer of it, and then you annotate it with some of the things that are interesting. And then as you go through and you begin filling out all of the portions of that outline, you may want to make changes and, you know, pull out section B and move it down to D and all these different things, because as you've worked through the story and all of the new details have been added to it, you have decided that it just flows better in a different way. And that's totally okay. That is well within your purview to go ahead and make those adjustments. It doesn't have to be a complicated and painful thing in my head. There's, like I said, there's a bunch of resources. I'll throw them down in the description here that are, you know, worth reading. Yeah, that's it. Don't overcomplicate it. Just keep it simple. Make sure that you have the things that need to happen, those, you know, canon events, and then everything else you can realistically prep in the time between sessions. Don't prepare for more than, you know, you're willing. And one of the best things to do at the end of session is to ask your players to give you a plan. What do you want to accomplish? Why are you doing this? And if they say, well, we want to deal with the pirate situation by developing our own fleet, okay, now we're going to prep purchasing boats, hiring people for these boats, maybe a brief, you know, sea-based adventure. Where are the pirates getting funded from? So your rogue could be super useful in terms of infiltrating onto those pirate ships maybe, and you can run, you know, them sabotaging and all that. Or if your whole party is into that, then that's a whole interesting storyline too. So you can come up with lots of different ways for however you want to handle these different things. And that is just stuff that I came up with just off the cuff in the process of this video. So I'm sure that you, with all of your infinite wisdom, can sit down, write some interesting ideas, and play it out with your friends. That's really the goal here. That's my opinion. If you have a different opinion, tell me down in the comments, because I would love to hear some of the tips. This is how I've run my games for as long as I can remember. But let me know what you guys think and if you have a better system. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.